Are you surprised that Pettine didn't name a starter today?
No, I talked to him last night after the game, and I asked him every different way. He said, I just don't know. He said, neither of these guys distinguished themselves tonight, and we got to go up. We got to go back. And I think the one thing from talking to Mike Pettine last night, I would just bet, I didn't ask him this, I would just bet that he wishes now he didn't say that we're going to make our decision by the third preseason game.
Right.
Because, to me, I think if you got to make a decision now, you probably go with Hoyer. And I would too. But I think the time that they're thinking about this now, it just says one thing to me. This is very close, and they know that even though Johnny Manziel has not played well in the preseason overall, he's had some good moments, and they think they're going to need his mobility, once the season starts, especially because they open the season facing some really good pass rushers. So I just think that Pettine, deep down, I think, wishes that Manziel made his decision easy. Manziel didn't, so they're going to take their time.
Peter, I know what he said after the game about the finger incident, but did you get a sense how upset Pettine was by what Manziel did?
I think he was upset, but I didn't think he felt it was World War III, nor do I. But the one thing that we talked about, and that I felt, is that one of the reasons you can't do something like that, Don, is because then opponents know that you got rabbit ears. Opponents know you're listening. And you've got to be above it all, especially when you're a quarterback. You've got to be above the fray. And you have to be able to take anything. And I've always thought Manziel's a very cool customer, no question about it. But I think that would worry me if you're in a preseason game and, somebody on the opponent is on the opposition is yelling at you. It's just, first of all, it's Bush League to flip him the bird. Second of all, Manziel's got to realize that, at a Monday Night Football game, first of all, there's going to be 20 cameras. And when you're Johnny Manziel, it means that from the time you come out of the tunnel to the time you go back in the tunnel, for those 3 hours, there's either going to be a camera from the networks or from somebody's smartphone trained on you for three or 4 hours. So, it's something he's got to learn. But again, I don't think we ought to take it as the decline of Western civilization. It's not the first time that's happened in the game.
I couldn't agree with you more, Peter, but, should anybody be surprised? It's like that scene from Casablanca, gambling in this establishment? I can't believe it. That's Johnny Manziel.
No, I know, Michael, but I just think that that at the end of the day, I think one of the things that I found with this man, the TMZing of Johnny Manziel, is that, this sport is really different. Michael, can you imagine, even as under the microscope as Derek Jeter has been for the last 2 decades in New York, he has built up something in New York City where he can have a private life, okay? Right. And I'm not sure that that's going to be possible for Johnny Manziel, no matter where he plays, because he just seeks out so much of that stuff. And I'm just not sure he's going to be able to have either a football career or a life without, without the microscope following him everywhere.
Peter, the other concern about football in general, the preseason's tough to watch to begin with, but when there's 20, 25 flags in a game, it becomes utterly ridiculous. The NFL seems confident that this will even itself out. Are you confident that we will see a reduction in penalties when the regular season begins?
Yeah, I am, Don, and I'll tell you why. I was with Richard Sherman yesterday in Seattle, and one of the things he stressed to me, I asked him if he was worried about this, and one of the things he stressed to me was, he said, hey, listen, we know the rules. We know if such and such is going to be a flag, that we're just not going to do it. And so first of all, no player really cares about the preseason. And I think there have been two factors that have inflated these numbers this past weekend when the average game had 21 accepted penalties, as opposed last year in the NFL, in the average week in the NFL, there were 12 accepted penalties in a game. But I think the one thing to realize is that in week 2 of the preseason, there were 21 officials, experimental officials from college football that the NFL believes are prospects for the future. It's kind of like if the Yankees brought up 3 guys from Trenton and 2 guys from Scranton Wilkes-Barre, and they said, okay, you're going to play for this series this weekend because we want to see what we have. That's what the NFL does one weekend in the preseason every year. So it just happened to be this weekend. So a lot of these crews had experimental officials on them, 1 or 2. Every crew, in fact, had 1 or 2 just sort of experimental officials on it. And then I think the second thing is, I think that these guys are trying to test the limits. They want to know how far they can go with these points of emphasis, particularly on illegal contact beyond the 5-yard bump zone. And it's interesting. I talked to Peyton Manning today about this. And, one of the things that concerns players is fouls away from the ball that have nothing to do with the game. And, as he said, that's the thing that if it happens during the season, it's kind of troubling because if I'm thrown to the other side of the field and there's a real ticky-tack call on the other side that has nothing to do with the play, nobody's going to be happy. So that, I think, is what the biggest concern is. But I sort of agree with Richard Sherman most of all. When we get to the start of the season and we see how it's being called, we're going to adjust really quick because we don't want those big first down causing penalties.
All right, before we let you go, Peter King of SI and MondayMorningQuarterback.com, MMQB.com. You've been all over. I don't know how you're not exhausted. Tell me the team that a lot of people think is going to be bad that you think is going to be good from what you've seen.
Tampa Bay. It's the one team that I think, first of all, in Lovie Smith's defense, you need a great player at the outside linebacker where Derek Brooks played, and you need a great player at this defensive tackle position called 3 technique. Basically, it's the one that disrupts the quarterback, rushes the passer well. Well, their best 2 defensive players are playing those spots, Levante David and Gerald McCoy. And on offense, I am going to be ridiculed come Thanksgiving if this guy stinks, because I swear he won't stink. And that's Josh McCown, the quarterback. I think he's going to play well. He played superbly last year in relief of Jay Cutler in Chicago. I think it's going to continue. He's got 3 6.5-ish targets in 2 rookies, Mike Evans and Austin Seferian Jenkins, wide receiver, tight end.